Men and women, all of us have broken hearts. And when we face the unmentionables, when we face shame and failure, we take that half-hearted part of us. We're half-hearted because half of our heart is hidden, and we become vulnerable about that with some bloodstained allies, and God begins to flood us with His freedom. So habit 4 is about facing the unmentionables. And what I mean by that is facing shame, facing defeat, facing failure. Listen, everybody has shame in their life. And anybody who says they don't have shame in their life probably has way more shame than they even know. So habit 4 is the willingness to face failure, face shame. I'm calling them the unmentionables because nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to talk about their childhood, their background, their trauma, the sexual abuse, whatever it might have been. But Brene Brown, in her many groundbreaking books, has said this: the courage to be vulnerable is not about winning and losing. It's about the courage to show up when you can't predict or control the outcome. This breakthrough courage in facing the unmentionables is to realize that not everybody is necessarily going to be excited about you being vulnerable about the unmentionables, about shame and failure in your life. So we don't play to them. That's not the point. The point is for you to get set free. Not what other people think about you getting set free, but you actually literally getting set free. The reality is there's no other way out. There's no other way out but to face the unmentionables in your life, because shame, and this is important, shame is the birthplace of fear. The word itself, shame, sends shudders up and down many of our spiritual and emotional spines because we're ashamed of something. What do? We play hide and seek. We hide it. You show me someone who's extremely boastful. You show me someone who's extremely arrogant. You show me someone who's full of pride, and I'll show you someone who's armoring up their shame. They're hiding something. And so it's through their extravagant pridefulness, they're always right about everything, is someone who is not willing to face the shame that's in their life. Shame, Brene Brown says, is basically the fear of being unlovable. It's the total opposite of owning our story and feeling worthy. In fact, the definition of shame that I have developed from my research is shame is an intensely painful feeling or experience of believing that we are flawed and therefore unworthy of love and belonging. Shame keeps worthiness away by convincing us that owning our stories will lead to people thinking less of us. Shame is all about fear. So what do? We run and hide. We run and hide. And that's why so many people are full of fear, full of unforgiveness, full of feelings of being unworthy and unloved. And breakthrough courage is the willingness to face those areas of our life that are the unmentionables. Face them. Now, let me just make one thing clear when I'm talking about this habit number 4. I'm not talking about that everybody and their mother needs to know about everything in your life. I'm talking about vulnerability with some bloodstained allies, which was habit 3. So there's a certain group of people that you can open up with and you can share and be vulnerable with, because that's the key. That's the key to spiritual breakthrough in your life, is being willing to be vulnerable with a few people who you care and know that they care about you. And I know for me, when I went through my situation at the last church that I was a part of, and the shame that I felt and the betrayal that I felt at that time, it was with my bloodstained allies that I was able at that time to find spiritual breakthrough. I was having a spiritual breakdown, but it was through these men in my life that I began to have spiritual breakthrough. and to have breakthrough courage in my life. I couldn't have done it alone. Couldn't do it alone. I needed these guys to just armor up, act like everything's okay. And I hear it all the time at church and among Christians, like you say, well, how you doing? They go, couldn't be better. And I'm like, oh, really? Well, if it can't be any better than this, then man, your standards are too low. But the reality is that when we begin to be honest about our brokenness and honest about our hurt and our pain in our life, that's when we're going to have breakthrough courage. So I want to challenge you in this habit to learn to be vulnerable. Again, I'm going to quote Brene Brown. If we want to live in love with our whole hearts, and if we want to engage with the world from a place of worthiness, we have to talk about the things that get in the way, especially shame, fear, and vulnerability. Some people have even called it the swampland of the soul. So own your story, men and women. Own your story. Not just the victorious side of it, not just the great stuff that you've done, but also some of the crummy stuff, some of the bad stuff, some of the painful things that you've had to go through. Because the hard work, and it is hard work, the hard work of owning your story is the act of liberating yourself from those messes. It's in liberating ourselves that we begin to experience breakthrough courage. And let me tell you, this is not an easy road. Remember habit 2? Embrace hard. Well, embrace hard is the key to also going through this aspect of breakthrough courage, which is facing the unmentionables. This may be the biggest hard in your life, is being willing to face the unmentionables. Because most people would rather run away from it. But I'm challenging you to face fear and failure in a mighty way. Because all of us carry guilt. All of us carry shame. All of us carry those things in our life that seem impossible to find a breakthrough in. The Bible talks about light shining out of darkness. And I believe this is a key part of embracing and facing the unmentionables in our life. We all carry what I call the dark shame caves. We have these dark shame caves, and they're cutting away at our heart. They're atrophying us emotionally. They're becoming a cancer of our heart. So one time when I was out hunting elk, and I shot this elk, and had taken my knife and cut off a quarter of it to take back to camp, and I cut myself. I cut my hand pretty deeply with a razor sharp knife, took the quarter back to the camp, forgot that I'd cut myself, and the next morning I awoke with this pus and this growing disease, as it were, or poison in my body from where I'd cut myself. And what did I have to do? I had to sterilize my knife and then reopen that wound, get the poison out, put the ointment on, and begin to see it heal. And immediately the pain went away. Well, it's the same way with our hearts. That some of us have been cut and we've never actually treated the cuts of our heart that have happened through the shame of our past, and it's developing a cancer of our heart. Even my physical metaphor of what I had to go through is true with our hearts, that we sometimes have to go in and we have to reopen that wound and begin to deal with it at that point. And for me, with the situation at my last church, is I went through a year of counseling. And I began to discover that light shines in the darkness. And I began to let Christ have those wounds of my heart. So in 2 Corinthians 4, we read these words by Paul. Therefore, since we have this ministry, as we have received mercy, we do not lose heart. But as we have renounced the hidden things of shame, not walking in craftiness, nor handling the word of God deceitfully, but by manifestation of the truth, commending ourselves to every man's conscience in the sight of God. So to renounce in the Greek actually means to declare. It means to speak out. And he's saying here that the way we speak out our shame is through those others in our life, commending ourselves to every man's conscience. Do you see that? That's the habit of bloodstained allies. That's the habit of vulnerability. So to speak out, be vulnerable about the shame areas of our life is how we build a strong heart. And what we build is real authenticity. And when we have real authenticity in our life, people trust us. You learn to trust yourself in a whole new way. And that's what Jesus wants. Jesus is the great freedom fighter. Jesus said this about his ministry. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me because he has anointed me. He has sent me to heal the brokenhearted. Men and women, all of us have broken hearts. And when we face the unmentionables, when we face shame and failure, we take that half-hearted part of us. We're half-hearted because half of our heart is hidden, and we become vulnerable about that with some bloodstained allies, and God begins to flood us with his freedom. God begins to flood us with his light. God begins to flood us with his healing. And that's why in this habit, we can be set free from the deepest of issues of our past and be set free to a glorious and awesome, authentic future because we've been set free from shame and failure. So I challenge you with some bloodstained allies that you be open and honest with someone or maybe a small group of people so that you can begin the process of getting set free.